So there's a couple tools here. I built the armature. I have, this is going to be my left hand because I'm a righty, and it's going to make it a lot easier if I'm working from my left hand so that I can still use my right. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm turning this around so that my thumb is on this side, and I'm going to mark, and in this case I'm remarking some of the measurements that I took earlier and put them on my drawing. But in this case I'm going back, and you can see that I'm over here, and this wire is almost exactly on that line that I put, or those marks that I put for the knuckles, or the joint for the knuckles. So when I put that, I will call it the lacing between these forms, I did a couple things. I marked it, put it on there, about the distance between my knuckles, and then I hot glued it. Now I'm going to go up from there and start measuring from the phalange joints. And so in this case, you might already have those on your drawing, those measurements, but in this case what I'm doing is I'm taking it off the back of my hand, the distance between the knuckle joint here and then the first phalange joint, and I'm coming up and I'm going to mark it. So I'm using my compass as a way of transferring that. It makes it a little bit easier. And I'm using my Sharpie just to mark that spot. And I can go down and I can mark each one of these. In this case, a little smaller, right? If you have your drawing, you can take it right from your drawing. Then I'm going to move up to the next joint. Trying to do this with my left hand right here. So you have to be a little bit ambidextrous, I guess. Okay, so if you look here, now there's a lot of extra armature in there. We're going to leave that for now, and we'll trim it off later. But what I have now is I've marked a couple of my joints, and you'll also notice that I have straight lines, or as straight as I could get. This one is really long. I'm going to trim them off in a little bit. But I'm going to go up here and I'm going to keep these lines as straight as possible so that when I start articulating this, it will retain a certain amount of structure. Now, as I do this, I'm only going to do a couple of these so you get the idea of what I'm doing. And then you guys can continue it. And I will do some more on my own so that you guys can see where I'm going. But the first thing you're going to want to do is take a look at your hand. You're going to take a pose. It doesn't have to be perfect right now, but you're going to make a decision about the pose that you want to articulate. Is it going to be like this? Is it going to be like this? Is it going to be like this? It doesn't matter, right? Let's say I decide I'm going to do something a little bit backwards. So I'm going to start articulating by bending my wrist joint. And the way to bend it is first take your pliers, the pliers that you got over the Thanksgiving break, and you're going to grab your joint. Now my joint is right at where I twisted that wire around and put some hot glue. So I'm going to take my pliers and grab it, and then I'm going to bend it with my thumb. This is the one that's hard, but in this case, I'm just going back straight. If I were to bend it over to the side, I would bend it over in that direction. There's a lot of movement here, but the first one is just thinking of this as the front plane. This is the front plane, and I'm going back. If I wanted to go back and a little bit over, I would go back and a little bit over. Again, the way to bend the joints is not, this is not what to do, okay? Do not go, my pinky's bent, so I'm going to bend my pinky. That's never going to work, okay? Because what you're going to do is, this is going to go crazy. I'm giving you a very systematic way of doing this, right? It means starting from here, choosing the bend, grabbing it and bending it right where it's going, where the joint is. I'm not going to grab it and wrench it. Okay? You're going to get crazy. It's never going to look right. You have to think, where's the joint and which direction is it bending? Assuming that your arm is straight up and down. Do not bend your arm this way or that way or anything. It's going to be straight up, a bend. You know, you can go either extension, inclination, right? This sort of thing. Don't do too much twisting. It doesn't matter what you do with twisting, but you're going to be bending, right? How's my video going? Good?
That's good, yeah.
How do I look?
It looks fabulous.
I shaved. So you're going to grab, again, you're going to grab it and bend. The next thing you'll do with the palm, remember the palm, he had described it, it tends to be a little bit of a tunnel, so you can take it and just look at your hand, and your hand itself has this curving to it. So the palm here, you can put a little bit of an arc or an arch in there. But again, do that in the beginning. After you've done this bend, you can do the arc. And the reason for that is that remember your pinky might move a little bit more than the rest of it. So you can at this point pull that palm in. The only thing you're talking about right now is the palm. Same thing with the thumb. You're going to take a look at your thumb. Now remember that all of your fingers have this tendency to come down towards the center. Your thumb should be pointed very much towards the palm. It should not be pointed outside of that. It really does not want to do that. And that's the same thing with your pinky and all your other fingers. They all tend to want to come in. In the video, you saw that there's also a tendency of certain curves that you'll notice. Curving on your finger coming up and in like this, if they're straight. And your thumb also has a curve that you'll notice, where it tends to come out and then have this kind of curve back in with the forms. But if you were to take your thumb, all the same lessons apply. You're going to start your movement down here. Here are your lengths. I'm going to put some marks in here. I'm not sure if they're exactly right, but so that you guys don't have to wait for me to do all that measurement. And then my tip might be there. Right, so I'm gonna go ahead and once I've measured out the tip, I can cut it off. Make sure you have it right before you do that, okay? So that measurements, remember how to do the measurements. Take your measurements and transfer it. Then you're gonna start here and you're gonna make a decision about it. Which direction is it gonna go? Grab the joint to stabilize the joint. And in this case, I wanna bring it out and bring it up. There. Then at this joint, I'm going to grab it, stabilize it. It's coming in that direction. That's about right. And then this one is bent back just slightly. So I'm going to grab it at the joint and bring it back slightly. You see how I did that? Now, that's going to take a little bit of paying attention, a lot more than I did. So let me do it one more time to show you. So for example, I measured out the middle finger again. My marks are here and here. My Sharpie is not great, and then the end of my finger is there. I can trim it off now if I want because I have I may even trim it off more later when I want it to sit inside of the clay. But for now, I want a little bit of a bone there. So the first thing I'll do is I have where my knuckle is because I've taken the time to just look for that cupping form or that arch form inside the palm. Then I'm going to decide, I'm going to really look at my pose and I'm going to decide what that angle is for that middle finger. And in this case, it's only a very slight angle. In this case, it's like if you were to put a number on it, if 0 is a straight line, this is maybe a 10 degrees off of that straight line. And in this case, it's right in the same direction as that center of my palm. So I'm going to bend this to point back down towards the palm. First thing I'm going to do is straighten it. Then I'm going to stabilize by grabbing it at that joint and then bending it at that joint. It's only 10 degrees. That's the first measurement, right? And then I tend to find that the second phalange is where most of the movement in your fingers occur, right? There's actually not as much in the distal. So then I'm going to look at it. Here's my pose, right? It's a slight bend here and then almost 90 degrees. I would say maybe 70 degrees, but it's not quite 90, but it's past halfway. And it's a judgment call on your part. You have to make that judgment. So again, it's a hinge joint and it's pointed down towards the palm again. So I'm going to grab it and I'm going to bend it. Again, towards. Again, you have to think about where it's bending towards. I don't want to grab it and bend it this way or that way. I want to grab it at the joint and bend it in the direction that it goes. Same thing here. And this is barely a bend at all, my distal phalange. So, but I'm still going to grab it, stabilize it, and bend it slightly. Okay? So that's the pose of my middle finger, my thumb. I could do the index finger as well. I have the mark there. I'm going to get it brighter. And then my last one is you see me kind of just fudging it when I'm just trying to transfer the information quickly. But I want you to be more precise about transferring that information. I'm doing it quickly so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to bend it. Again, the first joint will be at the knuckle right here, this joint. I'm going to bend it there. And in this case, let's see, here's the pose. It's actually bent in. That joint right here is starting to bend in this direction. So I'm going to do that. And then it comes off at a very slight angle, if you look. It comes up and in, but it's fairly straight. So only thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to, again, grab it at that joint, stabilize it, bring it in a little bit, right? And then maybe towards me slightly. I can go back and adjust these things, but the more you think about concentrating on where the joint is, what it's doing, how far it's bending, and in which direction, and you do this in a very precise and methodical way, you're going to have a really beautiful, elegant hand that does what you want it to do. Again, if you try to start on the outside and move your way in, it's going to get crazy. You start from the inside, move your way out. Only bend it at the joints. Start out with straight fingers, only bend it at the joints. And every time you bend it, you think about where's the bend, which direction is it going, how far is it going, and that's it. Don't try to do too much with this. Do not bend it, and then grab it and go, you will screw it up. And this goes for the entire process. You have, even after the clay is on there, you have to do that. So let me do this last joint. Again, it's bent in like this, and it's kind of just bent close to a 90 degrees, and it's kind of shooting up in this direction, but it's on a hinge joint, so I'm going to grab it, stabilize it, and then almost there. See how it's coming together? And then the phalange is not really going too much of a bend at all. I'm going to trim that off as well, because I had marked that where, well, I can trim it off. So then it doesn't look quite right. I think I bent it a little too far, so I'm going to grab it again and push it back slightly. You see where I'm going? Does this make sense? I'm getting a lot of nods, right? If it doesn't make sense and you want me to do one more finger, just say so. Okay? So you just have 2 more fingers now. Okay? That's how you would articulate it. Before we put clay on, I want you to get that and make it will look like a hand. It will look like a hand that's posed when you're done with it. But keep it simple. Don't try to do too much with it. All right. Got it.